Hi, I'm Dr. Jackson Crawford. I'm a specialist in the Old Norse language currently teaching at the University of California, Berkeley, and as of fall 2017, returning to the University of Colorado, Boulder. I'm back today answering more questions from Patreon supporters. Supporter Maximilian Schmitz asks about relative clauses in Old Norse, and especially about whether the word order in relative clauses is any different from the word order in main clauses in a similar way to perhaps how it's done in modern German. In fact, in Old Norse in general, word order is somewhat freer than in, say, English, German, or the modern Scandinavian languages, but for the most part, the word order in relative clauses doesn't depart that much from word order in main clauses. The relative particle in Old Norse is simply or in older language s, so it looks identical to the word for is, which can be a main tripping point for new learners of Old Norse. The word is always preceded by a head word that has this or that on it, so the head word has to be specified unless the head word is simply the word this or that, monster pronoun. So for instance, here from Koningsskuggsjól we see a line, Þetta hav nu rudden vit in literal word order, this ocean which now spoke we about. The word order is a little odd from a main clause perspective because typically the verb follows the subject, but in this next example, which is from Herfrasaga og Heiðreks, we see the word order is actually normal. Þó þú gefir mér allt það þú átt. Though you might give me all that which you own. Normal word order, subject, and then verb. In fact, the use of verb and then subject here seems more to do with emphasizing the verb than it has to do with it being in a relative clause. Speaking of the fact that the head word has to be specified, notice that this leads to situations where in English we sort of have to leave out that specifier word because we wouldn't do this in English. So a common situation, this is from the prose intro to Grottasanger, Skjolder åtti þann son Friðleifur het. Skjold had that son who Friðleifur is named. So in English, we probably say Skjolder had a son who was named Friðleifur, and we can leave out the specifier because there's actually no need for the specifier here. It's dictated only by the fact that it's followed by a relative clause. And notice here we have, again, a little bit different word order than we'd expect in English or in most main clauses, but typically when someone's introduced like this, het, the verb, is called, does follow the name, so it's not actually all that weird. And then we see the same thing. Typically the word order is not actually governed in any way by it being in a relative clause in a case where it's relative like where or when, and does mean where or when in a relative sense too. So here we see, and one time when they came to Somsøy, which the word order is exactly identical to what we use in English. So I suppose my takeaway point is word order in Old Norse is freer than in English anyway, but relative clauses don't seem to make any sort of their own fresh demands on word order any different than what main clauses do. And they can be pretty free, they can look like main clauses, but then main clauses can look a lot of different ways too. From the University of California, Berkeley, all the best to you.